and Senator Chris Murphy joins me now. Senator, I profoundly appreciated what you had to say on the floor, and I think just to highlight something key here, again, whatever information surfaces about the shooter's motives, there is a thing that happens here that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, which are this recurring ritual of mass shootings along these lines, even in countries with higher levels of per capita gun homicides. This has become a signature of American culture and policy and society that we produce this outcome. But more broadly, it just doesn't happen in any peer country. It feels maddeningly simple to say this and to repeat it, as I have for a decade on air and as you have in public life, but it remains the case, as you said, that is what separates us from everyone else, is the number and accessibility of the weapons of death that we have here in the United States.
Yeah, listen, my just heart is exploding for Texas, but also for these families in Sandy Hook that I know so well. They're literally reliving their nightmare right now. I'm a parent. I'm literally talking to you at the same time that I'm thinking to myself what I'm going to say to my kids when I get home later tonight, because I know they've heard about this and they're going to want to talk about it. But you're right. This is uniquely American, and my Republican colleagues are going to want to talk about mental health. But there's no evidence that the United States has any more mental illness than any other nation in the world. There's no evidence that we spend less money on treating mental illness. What's different about this country is the ease of access to weapons of mass destruction. I heard for the first time on your show just 5 minutes ago that there was likely an AR-15 involved, but of course there was. Any of us that listened to the details play out knew that there had to be one of these military-style weapons in the shooter's hands in order to kill that many kids in that short a period of time. And the difference between America and these other nations is not that there aren't people with homicidal thoughts in other nations. It's that they can't go down to their local Walmart and buy a weapon that kills 20 kids in 2 minutes. We're the only country in the high-income world in which that is a possibility for a brain that is breaking. And so why don't we just do something about it? My plea was honest, really. I mean, I don't want to call out Republicans tonight. I just want to ask them, please, please, whatever you can vote for, come and talk to me about it. I'm willing to let the good pass and set aside the perfect for now. But our message to parents all across this country who are really frightened right now can't be that we're going to do nothing. So hope springs eternal in my brain.
Well, there is a ritual of mass trauma that we have now entered into, and we've seen it since 1999, of course, from Columbine. I was just looking at an individual from Columbine who was talking about surviving Columbine and his son completing his first year in college, because that's how long ago it was. And, of course, Sandy Hook was 10 years ago, I believe this December, if I'm not mistaken on the date there. There are two things that have happened since then. The amount of guns in circulation has gone up dramatically. We know this from new reporting, actually, from the ATF, and the CDC now has been studying this as well. So we have more guns in circulation. But also, I just want to talk about the darkness and nihilism of gun culture, which to me has exacerbated and accelerated in the wake of these. So that now I'm seeing people already talking about Ken Paxton, who's the Attorney General of the state of Texas, talking about arming teachers, and this sort of solution is more guns everywhere all the time. And just how you've watched this develop, in your public life, this cultural aspect, this rhetoric around the gun, this fetishization of it in the last decade.
Yeah, there's a celebration of violence in this nation, which has gotten demonstrably worse over the last decade, and it has become a country that is just awash in guns. That ownership of a weapon is a way to sort of translate a set of broader cultural values that you possess. And again, nowhere but America is the ownership of a killing machine the way in which you translate values to your community. And when you have this many weapons that are just so easily accessible, it's no wonder that the numbers have gone sky high. You and I are talking about tonight because there was a mass shooting today. But ordinary, everyday
Yes.
gun murders have gone through the roof in the last few years, not coincidental to a 40% increase
Yes.
in the number of guns that are purchased, because the more legal guns that are purchased means that there are more illegal guns that are out on our streets. And so we just have to remind ourselves that every day is a nightmare in this country when it comes to the epidemic of gun violence. And much of that is because there are just so many weapons in this country, and we are being trained to believe that violence is a method by which you deal with your demons, you solve your problems. That has become much worse in the last couple of years in this country.
You know, I couldn't help but note an ad for a man who wants to join the Senate, Mehmet Oz, who's running in Pennsylvania, where he talks about the Second Amendment and guns. And there's two prongs in the ad. And one prong, he says, you know, hunting and sport and all that. You know, and that's been, I've seen ads like that my entire life, you know, going back to the second part is a no. And it's also there to take on our tyrannical government. And, you know, if our, like this explicit idea of the gun and the use of the gun, perhaps to take up arms, like that, the messaging around that, which has only grown, I've just watched it in increasing horror. And it goes hand in hand with this, the sort of explosion in the availability, which is just what our sort of culture and society are swimming in.
Yeah, and this is a product in part of how the industry has changed,
Yes.
Right? The industry a few years ago sort of was facing a crisis because fewer and fewer Americans were owning guns. And so the industry decided that they were going to sort of market weapons to this very small subset of Americans that believed they needed to be armed to the hilt to defend themselves against government. And so what you have today is 50% of weapons in this country being owned by 3% of Americans. And the gun industry makes money off of sort of selling weapons
Yes.
based upon this fear of government, a completely, totally irrational fear. But it's unfortunately right now the operating methodology of the industry.